All right, this meeting will come to order, the regular May meeting of the school board. First off, call to order, and we will have a roll call. Beth?
Mr. Bodie?
Present.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Present.
Mr. Gousset?
Here.
Mrs. Matney? And Ms. Wassman?
Here.
And just note that Ms. Matney has a child sickness in her family, so that's why she's not able to be here. She otherwise would be. Pledge of Allegiance, I'm just realizing, do we have a flag?
It's standing right there.
There
if
is
you look
one
at the
right
top.
on the other side here.
I can see the eagle.
There's the eagle.
All right, we can see one over here. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can consider approving minutes from the last meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
And I turn this over now to Andy Culp, Superintendent, for a recognition.
So it is my distinct honor and pleasure to say a few words about Dr. Madeline Partlow. The first thing I wanted to say is that Dr. Partlow always puts students first. Oftentimes in interviews or in my 25 years in public education, individuals say that, but Madeline really walks the walk. When she says that we put students first or that she puts students first, believe me, any tough decision that she has made in her 40-plus year career has always been students first. She has a deep advocacy spirit for not only every single student under her purview, but also, equally, she advocates for her staff that she is responsible for, dare I even say relentlessly. But that's a good thing. I also wanted to just make a comment that when Dr. Partlow came to Grandview, the special ed department was experiencing a lot of challenges, in particular with regard to due process filings, ODE, federal filings, and under her leadership, knock on wood, I don't think we've had one in the last 4 years. So, and believe me when I say we were getting like 2 a month. So I give her huge kudos for her leadership, not only in her advocacy for students and her advocacy for staff, but also her leadership in turning the proverbial ship around and ensuring that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. One of the things I always think about when someone is leaving Grandview is reflecting on one's legacy. And one of the questions I always ask is the department that they were responsible for, is the building that they were responsible for better because of them and their impact on kids? And I can stand here before this Board of Education and Dr. Partlow and say, without a doubt, her impact and legacy will echo for generations. And not only that, the special ed department is better for Dr. Partlow's leadership and experience in Grandview. She has truly impacted kids' lives that matter. And the last thing I wanted to say, more on a personal level, so probably 20 years ago, maybe 19, I was an aspiring administrator, and Dr. Partlow was the principal at New Albany Middle School, and she took a chance on an inexperienced young man, and that was me. And so selfishly, I thank her for also giving me my first opportunity as an assistant principal of a very large middle school. And so, but for her and her belief in me, I might not be standing here in front of you and she next to me. So with that, I just want to thank you for your steadfast advocacy for students, your work for kids, and also present a modest gift. It's a wind chime, and I'm going to read to you the poem. It says, "When gentle breezes blow and you hear these wind chimes play, take a moment to remember the many, many young lives you have touched throughout your teaching days. With great appreciation and affection, Grandview Heights Schools."
Thank you so much.
So please join me in giving Madeline a huge...
Well, I would just like to say that, you can make the right decisions for kids if you serve under a leader who makes the right decisions for kids. And I have never gone to him with a need for students that he hasn't been willing to meet. And some of them are hard decisions, but it never wavers. If that's what this student needs, we'll go there, we'll do that. So I've never been as supported as I've been here, and it is my 40th year, but I will say I could not have finished my career in a better place. It was my dream to finish under his leadership in a district as fine as this one. And honestly, it is the very best place to be. As I see these new administrators coming on board, I'm just so happy for them to have this kind of a leadership experience in a district where the board, the superintendent, the CAO, the tech director, the treasurer, are all about kids. And that's how decisions are made here. And I stand by that you all make it possible. So thank you for the best possible finish to my career in the best place there is to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Haley wants to get a picture. How would you like us?
What do you think?
In front of the board?
I am not a picture person.
We'll be background.
Oh, perfect background. We should do bunny ears.
Sure.
That's what I was thinking.
A little older than I did 20 years ago.
Nah.
Thank you.
I think next we're going to hear from the first robotics team, and I'm told that it would work best to go back to the area where they are. So we're going to decamp a little bit and head to the...
Field trip.
Kevin, you say?
Excuse me, Rob.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Excuse me.
You guys can come up to, like, whoever's speaking. Make sure you use this so we get it recorded, okay? I'm just going to pass it on.
Sure. Well, who wants this? What do we have to talk about?
I don't know.
What? Oh. Is it on? Is it on? Okay. So hello everyone. Thank you guys for coming out and for honoring us and everything. We had an amazing year this year, and we actually were able to place second with a very nice alliance. We had a very great competition, and today we're just going to give you a little demonstration kind of what we did at the competition. So pretty much the main thing is we're going to go around, pick up these balls, and that's how the game kind of goes. And then you're shooting them into kind of a big basketball hoop. So I'll hand the mic over and kind of demonstrate.
Hello? Hi, my name is Perry Moore, and I've been in robotics since freshman year. One of the main reasons this year we have LEDs, you see on the turret, that's what we call it. Basically, if you want to try it again, when we pick up the balls and then when we're about to shoot, if you see how it changes different colors, the field is very hard, and that big hoop makes it so it's hard to see and visualize where it's happening on the field because we have to be on the side. So one of the main things about that LED is for visual for our drive team. So when they're about to shoot, it looks like it's gonna like charge up and then it fires.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to talk about. Okay, so the main part, as I showed you guys, is our intake and then our shooter. There's also another big part of the game, which is actually at the end of the game, which is a climb. And it's like monkey bars that escalate upwards. And there's 4 different bars. Each bar has different amounts of points, whatever. The team with the most points wins. But these actually extend up and then hang on to one of the bars. So our robot's around 200 pounds, so it holds that 200 pounds and at the very end of the match. So that's the other part of our robot. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into this. It's a very big commitment and program, but it's an amazing competition, an amazing team. It's practically like a sports team. It's practically a family for all of us. We're all in there 3-4 hours a day building this thing. So yeah, anybody have anything else they want to say? Chairman's? Yeah. Personally, I think the biggest challenge is fitting all the components together. So it's not only like figuring out the strategy and how to actually build stuff for the strategy, it's how are we going to fit this, in with this, be underweight, because you can't go overweight, and make sure everything can run and work the same. It's a lot of troubleshooting. Like, you strategize, you think of good ideas, and then those good ideas can be turned into prototypes that don't work, more prototypes that don't work, until finally you get something that works, and then you have to troubleshoot it time over time. So yeah, and then just practice makes perfect. The more you can tweak things and make them better, the better. Anything else? Any other questions? Yeah. Actually, here, I'll pass around the mic. Yeah, do you guys want to talk about Chairman's first? All right, they're going to talk about another part of robotics, which is very big, is outreach, and Chairman's.
Hi everyone, I'm Maria, and so this year Henley Mueller and Nora Taylor and I were mainly about Chairman's, which is about encompassing all the ideas of FIRST Robotics. And so we're going to highlight very quickly some of the things we did. So one of a very prominent thing we did was donate over 60 pounds to the YMCA for their quarantine drive. And then also something that Henley really worked on that she can highlight is a very special project that we worked with OSU with. So.
Yes, back in my freshman year, I worked with Ravi Kumar and Lauren Leach to work on an engineering service learning project with OSU. We basically curated what we call engineering inspiration bags for children in Guatemala in impoverished communities. And we continued to discuss that this year, continue to build on it. For next year, just for future plans, I've already reached out to some people at OSU, and I hope to, now that COVID's kind of clear up, continue doing more outreach abroad with them for our teams. So yeah, Chairman's is important because we can win awards at competition that give us a lot of money or a trip to Worlds. This year, we got the Engineering Inspiration Award. That was freshman year. Okay, we got the Judges Award this year, which is kind of like Chairman's Light, but it doesn't send us to Worlds. But next year, senior year for us 3, we're really shooting to go to Worlds. So yeah, just continuing outreach initiatives as well as building great robots. So yeah, so now do we introduce each other? Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to just start it?
Okay. We can pass it down to you guys. All right, hi, my name is Max Lauer. I'm a senior this year. I've done robotics all 4 years. It's been a blast. I'm also part of Drive Team, so the team that actually drives the robot.
Hello, I'm Louis Emergis. I'm a junior, and I'm also a prototype team, and I'm really looking forward to next year because I really think we have a chance to go to Worlds.
You've kind of already met me, but I'm Maria, and I'm a junior, and I'm part of Chairman's.
I'm Lucia Mastriani. I'm a junior, and this is my third year of doing First.
I'm Nora Taylor. I'm a junior, and I'm also a part of Chairman's.
I'm Henley Mueller. I'm a junior. I've been in robotics all 3 years of high school, and I'm in Chairman's as well.
Hi, I'm Anna Bullock, and I'm a senior, and I've been in robotics since sophomore year, and I've just loved being part of both Chairman's and the building group.
My name's Nina Brown. I'm a senior. I've been in robotics for 3 years, and this year I mainly worked on the climb and the shooter.
I'm Sean McKelvey. This is my first year at robotics because I'm a freshman. I was on our drive team as the human player.
I'm Porter Knuff, freshman, and yeah.
I'm Rowan Mueller, and I'm a freshman, and this was my first year at First Robotics.
Hi, I'm Marek. I'm a freshman, and this is my first year in robotics.
Hi, I'm Everest. I'm a sophomore. This is my first year in robotics, and I am the backup driver.
I'm Maggie. I'm a junior, and this is my third year of First Robotics.
I'm Charlotte. I'm a junior, and this is my first year of First Robotics.
I'm Teresa, and I'm a junior too, and this is my first year.
We're kind of standing off to the side because we're the mentors. We let them do the work. But my name is Max. I'm a senior at OSU, and I'm like a student mentor.
My name's Jo Lee, and I'm one of the advisors here. We are missing a couple of mentors, just so you know. We have had several students come back to help us with the program. So there are a few other people that are missing here, but as people have said before, it takes everybody. It takes a team to kind of work together, so everybody's important here.
Hi, I'm Brad Ginnert, and I'm also a mentor. Just wanted to say these kids are amazing. It's amazing what they do. And when you go to competition and you see, for the people that have gone, some teams aren't student-led. Our team is student-led. They do all the work and really deserve all the credit. They do a great job. So thank you. Perry?
Hi, you've already met me. My name is Perry Moore. I'm a senior, and I did robotics for 4 years. I jumped around, but I would say my main role was photographer. If you want to, I have to do the plug. If you want to see the robot reveal video, there is on our school website to see it more in action.
What am I saying? What am I saying?
Just introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Simone Shortis. I am also a senior. I only did it for 1 year. I was too afraid to join before, but it was really fun. Is that it? Say. Yeah.
Good job.
The only reason I know that is because I asked them to build a custom box for their outreach.
So she's mad about the hour. God. Like, what is wrong with people?
Eric Bodie, I'm not sitting by you and I'm not talking about it. That's really cool. All this stuff, we didn't have this stuff when I was in school. Well, if we did, I didn't know it. I want to play with it.
Well, thanks so much to the robotics team. Very impressive. And thanks for the presentation.
Back to the regular.
I think we have next a K-5 math adoptions presentation.
Ooh, I'm curious about this. Turn my volume down.
I recognize that.
Okay, first I want to say thank you for letting us be part of this meeting this evening. This is just some of the math committee that I've worked with over the last year and a half, and they have dedicated after school hours and during the day to help research and find the best programs for our students. So when we started thinking about the math adoption for K through 5, we started with the Ohio Learning Standards. And as we dug into them, the first thing that came to us were the 8 mathematical practices. The 8 mathematical practices come from the National Teachers of English, or the National Teachers of Mathematics, and also from a report from the Council of Research, a report called Adding It Up, and it focuses on process and procedure in math. So when we got to thinking about that, we came up with 3 big ideas, and they're over there. And the first one is we want our students to be productive thinkers. We want them to engage in meaningful mathematical discourse. So the first 2 mathematical practices there are making sense of problems and persevering through solving them. The robotics team today was a great example of persevering through problem solving. It also, we want our students to construct meaning and then be able to critique others' reasonings and understandings so that they can engage in mathematical discourse. Next, we know that procedural fluency and conceptual understanding is a huge part of math. So the next 3 mathematical practices are to look for and make use of structures, use appropriate tools and strategies, and attend to precision, right? It has to be right or your robot doesn't work. And then we want them to be adaptive in their reasoning. We want them to look for and express regularity and repeated reasoning. So if it worked in one math situation, will it work in another? Can I use that? Should I use something different? Reason abstractly and quantitatively, and then make models using mathematics. So we decided that that is what we want every student to experience in our math classrooms. So then we started the process. First, we started with the learning standards. Then we used EdReports, and EdReports is a company that puts together many different math programs. They also do it for English and other subjects, but they rate them using a rubric on which ones are the best. So of course, we chose the highest number products to look at. We also had deep conversations about what we wanted our math classrooms to look like, and we came up with a workshop model that we'll talk more about in a minute. And then we did some piloting, some painful and fun piloting. So we did mid-school math, and we did Envisions math, and we did Zern. We also met with, we quickly dismissed Envisions. It was a program that was very hard, and so we quickly dismissed it. And mid-school math they enjoyed, but then we found that Zern also complemented that. And then we visited a school that is using Zern after a year and talked to them about their test results and their data and how their students were doing. And so we finally decided that we wanted to select Zern as one of our main resources. So I'm going to let Jessica talk a little bit about that mathematical model in our classrooms.
Yeah, so if you look up here, the pilot this year has been familiarizing not only the teachers, but the students with the platform and the language. But I really want to back up to the criteria because that's where the work happens. You can select any program, and it really comes down to how do we bring that practice to life, those mathematical practices and the standards. So we developed this model, and when I was here presenting with the middle school students, we talked a lot about how we had been focusing on PD for the workshop model. And I spoke specifically about ELA knowing that we were going to present this later on, we've also been working with the teachers on a workshop model in the math classroom. So the idea is, instead of thinking about learning as linear, you kind of turn it vertically, and you try to think about what does that student need at this minute to make them the most successful. And there's a lot of different pieces, and I know this looks circular, but it's really not. And I had the privilege of working specifically with the 4th grade team, and we went and observed classrooms in Upper Arlington and in Olentangy that really met our needs, because we knew we wanted to really focus on this with whatever platform we moved forward with. So I'm really excited because one of our new teachers, Lindsay Harper, is here to present. She's a rock star, and she did the really hard work this year, so I'm going to hand it over to her.
Hello, I'm a part of the 4th grade math team, and we had the privilege of going to visit Olentangy schools at Arrowhead Elementary, where we were able to meet with 2 5th grade math teachers who co-taught together, and a part of our time was spent just kind of understanding their process and how they planned together. They were very much about how do we as educators get out of the way of student learning and kind of give them the responsibility and take ownership of it, and they came up with a station rotational model. So after we got a chance to talk with them, we were able to see in action how responsive, fluid, and flexible their structure was. And then as a team, we came together to create our own station rotational model that fit with Zern and the curriculum. And throughout this, we were able to see that through some of the tech time that these teachers had set up, students were able to hit the instruction, application, and reflection part of the mathematical instructional model Jessica shared, where not only do we have the whole group time at the beginning, but then they're able to get additional instructional time through the online lessons with Zern, and then later with small groups. So we're kind of able to build off of the foundation we've established whole group and intervene with students as well as extend. And you can see through this program that Zern focuses on 4 days, Monday through Thursday, that I recommend that are core, that follow this structure, where you would begin with a whole group lesson with a launch time, and this would be a fluency and word problem followed up by that station rotational model, where students would have the opportunity to learn through independent digital lessons, and this allows them to all be exposed to that grade level content. And then through small group, we are able to kind of fine tune things together and then provide opportunities for collaboration and work with ST Math, which kind of creates a spiral where students are able to continue to build off work that they've already had in the room that we might not be covering in the current unit, but also expose them to future units. That way they know, oh, I've seen fractions before we get to that, and they're able to have that foundation. Up next, Amy Garrison is going to speak more on what does that process look like in the classroom.
Hi, Paula Oswald and I are actually both going to share and take you through what a typical math block would look like in the K-5 or K-3 building. The first component is the stimulus, and kind of piggybacking off of Lindsay, a stimulus can be anything, so it doesn't have to be what we are currently teaching. We want to pull content in and introduce them to things that they may not see for a couple months. But a stimulus is a math warm-up that provides an entry point for all students to volunteer in a non-threatening way and be able to talk about math. Conversations through the stimulus lead to good conversations, deeper thinking on content, lots of different math vocabulary, and gives teachers a way to informally assess the kids as well as know what misconceptions they may have on math topics. So I was going to ask you the questions that we ask our kids on what do you see or what do you notice for this stimulus?
I think Kevin said he wanted to go first.
I noticed that the number of bunnies matches the number of eggs.
Like, very nice.
I noticed that the patterns on the outside are the same, and then the second and the fourth are the same, and I think the middle's different, though. The eggs, that is.
Yep. Some of my first graders noticed the pattern on the eggs too. Pattern was had a lot playing into our conversation. Other things that the first graders noticed were that there were 5 rabbits in each row, and that 5 and 5 make 10. They then went on to say, oh, wait a minute, yeah, 5 and 5 make 10, but 6 and 4 make 10. And we learned how to make combinations of 10 a while back. And so they talked about all the different combinations of 10. And a little girl said, well, we could do it the opposite way. And we could say, instead of 6 plus 4, 4 plus 6. And those were when we did our turnaround facts for our fact families. And then they talked about how there were 10 bunnies and 10 eggs, which make 20. And we went back to saying, oh, well, 10 and 10 are 20, and 5 make 10. These are both examples of doubles. A kiddo referred to the bunnies looking like a 10 frame, which is a tool that we use in math. I prompted them then with another question saying, hey, when we did our reference task of using Katie cubes, what does this remind you of? And they were like, oh, it looks like when we made rectangles. And this rectangle would be 2 tall and 5 long. And they then got into describing the attributes of different shapes, knowing that a rectangle has 4 sides and 4 corners, but 2 are longer, 2 are shorter. They discussed lots of different shapes that have 4 sides and 4 corners, and how it's important to know descriptors on how to differentiate and tell those apart. We talked about parallel, we talked about the vocab word congruent as just a few. And the next component that Zern has is a word problem, which in the past, in first grade, that would be one unit that we would focus on, would be like, hey, we're in our word problem unit. But Zern focuses on it every day and makes it with real world problems. And what's really great is that no matter, first grade has 6 missions, and every day we do a different word problem, and it goes with the mission that we're on. So mission 5, we were doing shapes. All the word problems had something to do with shapes. So it gets kids fluent with math facts and learning a variety of strategies for addition, subtraction. But also then the kids just get to come up and show their learning on the smartboard and how they solved it and see their work. And I think Paul is finishing up.
All right, so those were both the whole group parts of our instructional day with math. This is where the kids would go onto their devices and start their digital lesson. So the math chat, story time, and learning lab are all the digital lesson time where the students are presented with a mini lesson with a guided practice provided by an online teacher, so different than their classroom teacher. These are always interactive. The dots that you see along the bottom show where the students will be stopped throughout the lesson, and they are asked to then practice their skills. And so they have a math workbook where they put that information, and they stop, they have the kids practice, and then they click the button that they're ready. It continues on and shows them how it would be solved or how it should be put, and then asks the kids to correct those things if they made any mistakes in that portion of the problem. The skills then will be applied through the next step, the Tower of Power, which is their independent learning and practice. The purpose of this is as an independent practice for kids to apply what they have learned during that guided digital lesson that was provided. Typically, there are about half a dozen questions to answer during that Tower of Power time. If the student answers incorrectly or incorrectly a certain number of times, it will ask them if they need a boost, and will provide that boost, which will take them back into providing some guided practice and instruction before letting them go back and do some more of that independent practice and close out that lesson. This also provides the teachers then a Tower alert. So there is a portion on the teacher side. If the kids are struggling and getting those boosts, the teacher sees where the students were struggling and what concepts we need to focus on. And so we know where each kid is struggling, what lesson to go back to. This takes us into our small group work with the teacher. This is where the teacher differentiates, and this is the portion where the kids are working now independently on their Zern work on their computers, so teachers are pulling small groups at the same time. The teachers differentiating the targets that were decided upon based on lots of different criteria. The groups may be done using the Zern small group lessons that are provided through Zern. The teacher is using data from the tower alerts and forming groups from those, as well as the exit tickets that the kids are turning in after their student workbook practice, and also from the data collected from Master Track, where we give them the checkpoints and assessments. So Lisa's going to share now about Master Track.
In order for our students to become successful mathematicians, we want to make sure that those foundational skills are solidified. So we utilize a tool called Master Track. And using Master Track, we have 3 benchmark assessments that we do per year, one in the fall. The fall assessment is actually an assessment over the foundational skills that they should have had mastered the previous year. So that's given at the beginning of the year, so we know right away if there are concepts from, let's say they're in 2nd grade, from 1st grade, that they still might not have solidified. The goal when we're looking at those graphs is to not see the red anymore. So green means that they've mastered it, the blue means that they're developing, and then the red means they're just not there yet. So as you can see from that first one, the fall benchmark, 21% was in the red, and there's no red in the winter benchmark. So when we use this, that's always what we look at. We look at where are the gaps, and that helps us address those issues in small group. When we give the benchmark assessment, Master Track actually helps us in terms of creation of groups, so we can see which groups need remediation in some concepts and which groups might need enrichment, so need to be pushed a little further if they have those concepts mastered. As Lindsay referred to when she was talking about that, the scope and sequence of the Zern lessons, Monday through Thursday they focus on Zern, and on Friday this is one of the things that we do, or on that 5th day, where we pull small groups and we're looking at providing that intervention with them. Then we also follow up from those small groups, those intervention groups, and do checkpoint assessments as well to make sure that students are retaining the information that we went over during those small group intervention plans. Then we continue to update and refresh that data and hopefully see the progress with each continuing benchmark assessment. And then Angie is going to talk about our next steps.
So they've done a lot of work, and we decided that these resources are really working. We're seeing student growth. And so our first step was then to look at manipulatives. You saw lots of those in the small group setting image up there. So we did a manipulative inventory. What do we already have? And then what do we need? So that is complete now. Then we are committed to monthly mission professional development. The nice part about Zern is it provides a preview of the entire unit. So we'll sit down before we teach a mission, same thing as a unit, before we teach a mission, and we'll do the professional development together. So they'll have Jessica, myself, Amy, Lisa sit with their team. We'll go through the professional development. We'll talk through things that could be tricky for kids. I did it with the 4th grade team this year, and we even talked about like, oh, I like the way they did that, but we have something that we feel is a little stronger. So we talked about where we would swap things out. Then we're going to continue our monthly data reviews. We're really identifying, I feel like, in math for the first time where the holes are, and we're identifying how to fix those. So that is exciting. And then in April, we're going to get this committee back together. They're going to be sick of me after a year and a half, and we're going to talk about, we've done it now for a year. We've been committed to the professional development. Let's look at our data, and let's reflect on the process and see where we are. And that is our presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free. You can ask now, or you can send them to me later.
Angie, I had a question about the schedule that Lindsay presented. Is that is that kind of like prescribed through Zern, or was that something that Olentangy and Upper Arlington were using? Like
Both.
The core days and the flex day, yeah.
So Zern recommends the 4 days with the 1 day.
Yeah.
Arlington and Olentangy use a station rotation model that's not prescribed by Zern, but it's just best practice in order to be able to have kids rotating through different things so you can work in small group.
Yeah. And that's something that you can probably, like, after doing it for a year, you can always look back and reflect. And
Correct. And we've done reading and writing workshop for forever. And when you have the ability to have kids doing something independently that checks their work, like you could have kids playing a math game, but when they're little, if someone's not sitting there, they could be playing it wrong, or they could be off task completely. This kind of gives you a little bit of checks and balance, so you're using that time that they're on their own learning effectively.
Yeah.
Do you
I
want
was
to
just
add?
going to add also with the middle school with the block schedule. So do you see that 20-minute timer? So what they do, so it can be extended, and they do it Monday and Tuesday to get through all 4 stations. But we do have a supplemental ST math, and we've had that for a few years, and that's a really great conceptual understanding of math. It takes the numbers out of the game. So that was one of the stations, and the other one is we recently just wrote a grant, fingers crossed, but we found that gaming was a great way for them to continue the vocabulary with each other. So we specifically sought out a collaboration station for them to practice that 21st century skill.
Cool.
Yeah, and Brian and Kelly from Arrowhead use the same model.
Gotcha.
I was going to ask, so this is K-5.
It is.
Okay. And is that because Zern is K-5, or is that, I mean, it strikes me because that's not how our schools match, and so how did...
So we just, it is more of an elementary focus. So we went with K-5 because that, when we start to differentiate and kids start to be able to take different pathways, that happens in 6th grade. So for consistency, we felt that K-5 model was best, even though we're in 2 different places. It's been nice to collaborate too across buildings so that they know what we're sending to them and they have a familiarity. Kind of just creates continuity for kids.
And Zern does go up to 8th grade, the platform itself, and we have access to that.
Yeah, I like hearing that because, we do have an unusual setup here with 4th and 5th kind of being separated from the 3rd and below, and that continuity is really important. But I was just curious, how are kids reacting to Zern? I mean, and I don't mean results that you're seeing. I mean, like, how are they expressing?
So 5th grade, remember, started their pilot with mid-school math. And so they were trying just the Zern games, but they hadn't had the lessons. So I was in the lunchroom, and the 5th grade kids feel like they can talk to me for some reason. And they were like, Mrs. Ullum, we hate Zern. And I was like, okay, tell me why you hate it. And they're like, if you don't get it right, it makes you start over. And I was like, was that a bad thing? And they're like, yes, it's a horrible thing. So I spent a lot of time talking to them. I had a couple kids stop and say, it's not horrible. If you just slow down and you watch the video, you can get it. So it does build their perseverance because you saw those bubbles along the way. What we find the older kids doing, they'll be like, I can't get it. And you stop them and you say, did you click through these or did you watch them? I clicked through them. Okay, well, let's slow down and we'll go back. I think I've checked back in with them and they're feeling better now because the 5th grade started to pilot Zern then towards the end of the year. So I think it was hard for them because they weren't piloting that program, but they were trying the games. And I feel like the younger kids have really taken to it. And we are seeing really good gains for kids.
That's good.
Go ahead.
Were you done? I had one more question, but it was not related to my previous. So okay. No, I was just curious, because you touched on it there, that digital piece, the digital lessons. Because I've heard that too, they can be frustrating. And every kid learns differently and they hear things differently and the same words won't work for everybody. So are you seeing when it comes to that digital lesson piece, I liked I forget which one of you touched on it, but said that basically it'll flag it for the teacher to let you know where they're struggling. But just wanted to hear a little bit more about like the pros and cons of that digital lesson piece, given that all kids don't learn the same way from the same words and lessons.
So I think and I'll let you guys speak to this because you do it every day, but from my perspective, the positive is it allows the teacher to work in small group, but she still knows exactly what's happening there. And so then she knows, I've got to grab that kid and tell them in a different way. I've also seen teachers say, hey, this kid's struggling. Can you tell them how you worked that out? And the child might explain it in a different way. So we're taking those alerts and then we're reacting to them and helping the kids figure it out. For me, the most important thing is when you're doing a workshop model, that the work the students are doing independently is meaningful. And I feel with the digital component, it is extremely meaningful for kids. And you're right, there are going to be kids that need that human teacher to sit down next to them and say, okay, you tried it that way, it didn't work, let's try it this way. And we're trying to get kids to see you can do it different ways.
Right, and I think that's like really great to hear because I also know that not every kid has a comfort level of letting someone know when it's not making sense to them. So I like that you're getting some kind of external alert saying they're struggling here because they might not be telling you.
And we get that also in ST Math. So if a student is doing ST Math, now ST Math is not my thing because it's all conceptual. She said they take the numbers out, they do. And that penguin frustrates the daylights out of me when I can't get him to go across the stage. But somebody who is a conceptual thinker, they can think that way, and I've always found that when a teacher says, hey, can you help him and tell him what you did to get Gigi across the stage, that really helps. But
that brings back memories of
penguin.
at-home learning.
Yeah, yes.
So the alerts are available in both systems.
And I think knowing too that it's just a part, that digital learning is just a piece of it where we have the whole group, they're doing the fluency, the word problems, like they're getting a lot of different exposure in a lot of different ways of those concepts. So you're kind of hitting all of those different learning styles. It's just like they're also being exposed to the other learning styles, whether or not that's their preferred or the best way for them to get it at that moment. They're getting it in the other pieces. I've even sat down with kids that the digital platform is challenging for them, and I'll sit one-on-one with them during small group time and like watch through the lesson.
Right.
So, that's another benefit to that.
And something we're seeing, one of the things that we did a lot of research on is the fact that we have to make math available to everyone, and there shouldn't be this, I'm not good at math.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're good at math, and I'm not. So the stimulus that we've been working on, Amy's now is helping coach that a little bit. That has created open doors. Of course, you have a kid that says, those are chocolate eggs. But it still allows them in the conversation, and then they're willing to listen to their peers. And then before you know it, they are saying, oh yeah, 6 + 4. Yeah, that makes 10. So the conversations that we're having with the stimulus is unbelievable.
I wanted to ask, first I wanted to point out that I noticed that all of the chocolate bunnies hadn't been eaten. That was my takeaway. I was like, they're all there. So
It's
that
been
was
a
my
month since Easter.
I'll come back to you. So this will have been implemented for a solid year at the end of the school year, Zern, correct?
Partially.
Piloted?
Piloted, yes.
So, and Zern is what the committee has decided they're happy with. What happens next with, so this is K-5, what do we do at 6-12? Because you're going to have a whole different bunch coming up to the upper levels. How will you make sure that there's articulation and all the good things?
So my goal next year will be to work with 612 and look at the programs we have and how the successes we're having and the resources they have, and share with them what we've done in K-5 and see how it fits and what our needs are.
I wanted to ask, we talked a bunch about catching up the kids, into who aren't mastering the concepts. If you just address the other end of the kids who start out already knowing it, or in that green at the beginning of the year, and just how you're treating in the K-5 spectrum that differentiation for the kids who are the really fast learners, and how this model incorporates them.
That is one of the things that I love about that Flex Friday, is if you have students that are doing really well, I know that there's project-based, and Amy could talk to you about reference tasks. Why don't you just share really quickly about reference tasks? Come up here. And reference tasks can last all year, and she's phenomenal. She won't take credit for it, so.
Okay, so there's lots of different reference tasks, and the goal is to start them in kindergarten and then to have the kids exposed to the same reference task year after year, and just builds on their knowledge. So one of them was making rectangles. So when I said, oh, hey, remember when we used Katie cubes? What did we do? And they said, oh, that's like when we made rectangles. It was 2 bunnies tall, and it was 5 bunnies long. And that goes into, like, my first graders can tell you about area and perimeter now based off of making rectangles. And it makes different arrays, so they also are, some of them are able to multiply and be able to tell you, like, oh, if it's 3 bunnies tall and 5 long, I know I could do 5 plus 5 plus 5, or I could do 5 times 3 is 15. But it just keeps building every year. There's making square pizzas, rectangles, there's some with, what? Yeah, there's a 120 grid, there's lots of them that have like rate and function and things that our kids, we don't talk about in first grade, but when they get older, they would understand that more. So there's like a penny jar problem where it's like, oh, if there's so many pennies on day 1 or in jar 2, 3, what would we have on day 10 in our penny jar, or day 100? And then they have to kind of figure that out.
So are those, I'm sorry, you call it reference?
They're reference tasks. Jonna-Lee Zupancic is the creator of them. She came and did some PD with our district a couple years ago.
And so are those assigned individually, so it would differentiate based on the level of?
So if you haven't taught them at all, the entry point is you start at the first lesson, no matter what grade, and then you can kind of branch off in different directions from there. But you have to introduce it first. And they're on our math toolkit that Jess made, where K-3 teachers can go into the reference task tab and open whatever folder they want, and it gives them directions on how to do them.
And then the nice part is if you have a student who's mastered the work for the day, you can say, hey, do you want to work on making square rectangles? Do you want to work on the locker problem? And so then that allows them to take it in any direction they want.
She also talks a lot about like what questions can we create, and then as you look at it, the one picture of making rectangles and say, well, what kind of questions could we create? They create a bunch of questions as a class, and then you can put them in a math notebook, and they can go and explore and answer those on their own during a Flex Friday.
And then also with Zern and with ST Math, you can move kids that are ready into higher content and let them move on. Sometimes in third and fourth, we also use our map scores, and we use mappers. You can put in their map score, and then that gives them content that they're ready for. So if I'm teaching second grade and I have a child that's ready for fourth grade math, I can put in their score, and then that gives them access to that next grade level ahead. So I might not be the teacher that can teach 2 full curriculums at one time, but I can have access to exposing students to material. And we can do that in mappers, we can do that in Zern, we can do that in ST Math. And then we also have reference tests. So we have a lot of different ways that kids' needs can be met.
Any other questions from the board?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So every time we have a board meeting, we set aside time to hear from the public. We welcome comments. We just ask people to stay within 5 minutes and address the board. We welcome listening to you. If we do not engage in conversation, but if you do have a topic where it requires more of an interaction, we can set up a time for that. Is there anybody who would like to speak at the board at this point? Come on up. I ask you to state your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Maria Ione. Did you say address?
Yes.
Okay. I live at 1155 Glen Avenue.
And my name is Henley Mueller. I live at 1227 Lincoln Road.
Okay.
As juniors and co-leaders of Bobcat Anti-Racism Collective at Grandview Heights High School, we want to express our support for the district continuing to protect and support teaching anti-racism in the classroom. As students in Grandview, we find it especially important to learn about our country's past, present, and future with race and discrimination.
When our teachers discuss topics about race in depth, it makes us inspired for change. It makes us more knowledgeable as human beings, and it makes us want to help shape this country for future generations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? All right. Do you want to do the action now? Do you want to go into the action now? Okay. I think we're going to take something just a little bit out of order, just because we have a special hire and through a big process, and would like to go ahead and do that at this time. So it's actually, the action would be, if I get this right, under 7, well, we have listed as 7A3A.
12.
Yeah,
Sorry,
12.
12.
Yeah, I did the same thing you did.
The math lesson. 12A3A, to hire as an administrator Sam Belk as our Grandview Heights principal. And Andy, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, so I just on behalf of the Board of Education, our administrative team, Sam, we had a pretty exhaustive process, as you well know, and wanted to extend a heartfelt congratulations to you, because at the end of the day, you have been selected, and we are so fortunate and privileged to have you on our team. You are going to be a great fit to Grandview. I know, because I actually also called a lot of folks that I know, and every single person that I spoke to said the thing about Sam is he always puts kids first, and he invests in building relationships that foundationally are predicated on trust and confidence. And I think that's going to be a great fit in this community. And I know I speak for the board and all of the teachers at the high school, as well as the administration, that you're going to make us better. And we're excited to have you on board. So congratulations. Well, assuming they pass.
Sam, we've had some great high school principals before you. Welcome you to the team here. If you'd like to say any words, we'd welcome that.
Yeah.
All right, well, first of all, thank you for those kind words, and thanks for having me here tonight. It wasn't that bad of an interview process. I thought it was pretty good. So the two things that really shined when I was going through the process and looking over things was climate and culture. I've always known that about Grandview, but to hear teachers like Emily Meister, I'm calling you with your first name now, and that whole crew during those interviews talk, I mean, sometimes I would get sidetracked because the goosebumps were just to hear how proud they were to work here and work with the kids. And then to see students like Maria, I remember, she gone, but she was on the interview committee too, and just to see her exemplify what we talked about in the interviews. She's here representing robotics, and then she's up representing another student group. I'm just proud to be part of this team, and I'm proud to push the culture forward. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Great choice.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve 12A3A. Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wasmuth?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Welcome
to the team.
have,
Yeah, welcome.
welcome. Building and department reports and the superintendent's report. Andy.
So I'm going to highlight, I'm not going to read the entire superintendent's report, but I wanted to just mention the 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. I know we had a little hiccup. That was the company's fault, but I also wanted to extend, quite frankly, just an apology on behalf of the company and the grace that our students and our parents showed. As a father of 3 sons, I know scheduling can be really important and challenging, and when there's a hiccup. So, and Sean, I know, thank you for all of your work during that situation. I know it wasn't your fault, it was the company's fault, but still, I appreciate your working to rectify that as best as we can. And by all accounts, the students had a great time, albeit on a shortened trip. So thank you. Congratulations to the Grandview Heights Singers. for getting a superior rating. Wanted to mention that Grandview Heights High School, again, is 34 students were inducted to the National Honor Society, and collectively they had over 1,961 community service hours. Always amazing to me is on Academic Signing Day, which took place on April 28th, recognized for earning of over $5,320,000. Just remarkable for a community, a school district, and I think speaks volumes of the caliber of our students. Today, Bill Lepp was an author visit, so I wanted to mention that, and he did a fabulous job in working collaboratively with our students, but also thank Christy Jump for her tireless work in coordinating and planning that author visit. I know it requires a lot of coordination, planning, and extra work. And then lastly, I wanted to just mention for those present, we will be having in this very room a K-12 athletic complex community meeting tomorrow. It's our first community meeting that will be from 6 to 7:30 in this room. So for those of you that are available and interested, come out and join us.
Questions or comments about the report? Great. Shall we move on to construction and ask Jay Tadina to come up? How's it going, Jay?
Great. Like the chosen location this month for the board meeting. Nice change of pace. Good to see you, and a few of us took a tour again before this board meeting, and was appreciative to see, you know, the excitement of all that we've accomplished again this last month. We're doing some really good things, and we're getting a lot of progress made. I'll start with the second floor. The majority of the classroom wings and corridors ceiling grid is already installed, which means that in addition to that, the light fixtures, the sprinkler heads, most of the HVAC devices, the air devices are already installed too. So that's moving along as planned. The first floor, we're finishing drywall, getting ready for paint to start in those same classroom wings. So we're moving our way down and out of the building. And kind of a basis that we use is we project about 12 weeks ahead per time and pick a milestone that we think is really critical to our success. And we did this back in March and picked Memorial Day for the second floor to be dropping ceiling tile, the tiles that you see in the corridors around this one. And we're tracking right there. And that gives us a little bit of float for some of the unforeseens that we could have. And we could even say it's slightly ahead of our original schedule. So second floor is looking great. First floor, we were hopeful that we would start ceiling grid. So the grid that you see on the second floor by Memorial Day, we're probably not tracking there. We'll be close. We'll be within a week or two of that. But having that, you know, that foresightedness, looking ahead, making sure that we grade ourselves and judge ourselves and pivot if we need to put focus, is what we've been doing, and we're really close on that. A couple of other accomplishments. So the heating and cooling rooftop units that, you know, fill in the conditioned space for this middle school phase, we set those on April 30th, which if you go around the construction industry on any project these days, the supply chain disruption and the material shortages and equipment shortages, it's more of a milestone than it normally would be to have some of this equipment here. And so we're fortunate with our electrical gear to be in place, those are rooftop units to be set now. And along with that Memorial Day goal is to start firing those up and start the startup process, which is a pretty extensive process, and conditioning the space for flooring, which will start in June, you know, in some of these upcoming months as well. Other upcoming work is summer work. So school lets out on the 27th. We're going to start what we just call the connectivity of the two buildings. So the temporary separations that we have between the Larson Middle School and the high school, we'll start to take those down so that we can start to connect the finishes of those. The annex building will be demolished and we'll extend the Fairview parking lot this summer, but that is currently slated for the 1st of June to start. I'll tell you about some challenges that we're having with that here in a second. And the gym, it will start to paint the new ceilings, and so the process in the gym being at a high, having a wood floor is to work our way down as well, similar to what we're doing over there. So a lot of the sprinklers already ran in there, a lot of the conduits already ran, and so we'll paint the ceiling, we'll do the athletic equipment, and then work our way down to do the new flooring in the gym. So as we talked about, the material lead times are challenged. There's a couple of things that we're working with right now are some of those. Our laboratory casework is slightly delayed by some of these material supply shortages. They were going to come in the beginning of June, which would have been right on the step with where we're at today. They've currently pushed to mid to late July, which, we just found out about this, but we're confident we can overcome that. But it is a challenge we're dealing with. And earlier this week, we discovered that the annex building has asbestos-containing materials in it, which is a little bit unforeseen. And to demo a building, you need to notify the EPA that you're clear of asbestos and wait 10 days, and then you can demo the building. So it might not be the 1st of June, it might be the middle of June, but just a heads up that that's coming down. But overall, we're in a really good place. Progress is great for the building and for the high school renovation in the next phase. So that's a construction update for this month, and take any questions.
Questions? Looks really good. I mean, Kevin and I just walked through it. It's impressive. Excited.
It is. Yep. Kudos to the design team and everybody involved. There's a lot of trades. We had a Safety Week celebration, which we had, I think, 70 plus tradesmen and women come through for lunch just to celebrate their efforts on safety and not having any incidents. And so appreciate Andy and Haley and others that, and Chris Dice and others that joined us for that. Did you come to that, Beth? And Beth, of course. I would never forget. Never forget the treasure. Sorry. Any questions? Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Jay.
you.
Continuing on with the construction piece of the agenda, the core team committee report. And Emily, you want to start us off there? Or?
Sure, yeah, we actually just met earlier today, but we meet, well, pretty much every week, but, so, there are two change, well, are they both considered change orders exactly? Yeah.
The bottom of that first page.
Yeah, and, right there. So, we feel comfortable. One of them has been on the radar in particular for a long time. That has to do with technology and the locker room flooring. So that it's not like that was unexpected, nor the other actually about the site plan. And that's actually what we spent quite a bit of time over the past month talking about is the site plan, which is exciting because then that'll, be sort of the next big frontier. And it's all like, everything's looking good and actually coming in, the projections coming in good. And I don't know, what else you want to add?
Well, that change order here includes the cost for many of the special things that we've talked about, including playground, the outdoor learning area. What am I forgetting?
There's the city money.
Education
Yeah.
Foundation and the city money.
Yeah, so
city money for
the three
extra
big, because it's the
parking lot.
200,000 from the foundation, then the 250, well, it's 251,500 actually when the outdoor learning, and then the money from the city, all of that, which altogether is quite a bit of money.
It's not quite $1 million, but a lot of contribution there. So the change order itself is over $1 million, but it is expected stuff, things that we've talked about, things that compared to what we have talked about previously and approved as additions, it's on budget. So really just carrying through with that.
Right.
So pretty good news. I think, one of the things we talked about today is just how with so much of, the work at the high school to take everything old out and expose and find, things that may not have been there. Jay, you just mentioned the one more asbestos find, but hopefully we're about at the end of that. Almost all those like unknowns, like what's behind that wall, is about done.
Right.
And so some of those things that have driven the change order process and extra costs should be really slowing down.
Yeah, we took a look at basically all the remaining items that are still on the radar, and they're accounted for in a budget sheet, even if we haven't had it come before the board yet. That, like Eric said, it felt like for a while there it was just coming fast.
Mhm.
And we're definitely getting the sense that that is slowing and hopefully stopping.
Sure. And like you said, with the lack of unknown, that's comforting.
Right, because there was asbestos in the auditorium that was discovered not long ago, and
Right.
so that's already accounted for, and then.
A related, as we're talking about, working with Marble Cliff on some of the AEP funding and how that relates also to the very exciting athletic project that is tomorrow with a couple events for the first of the 3 that are scheduled. Not a whole lot of progress, actually. The mayor of Marble Cliff is on vacation, so we're waiting to talk to him. But, I actually just, thinking a lot, I think, some of the discussion about how to think about the finances for the future, for the next phase, as we identify things with the athletic complex, and how to really think about, what chunk at what time to take for that. It'd be a big few decision points over the next few months.
Yeah, and that'll be ongoing, because I think we've said before that AEP substation is not likely to impact us financially for at least several more years, so, but it's just sort of on the radar, thinking about. And yeah, so there's the first meeting, what's the name of the group that's meeting during the day, like the
Programming committee.
The programming committee, okay, so I'm gonna be at that meeting tomorrow during the day. That's like the nearly all day long meeting.
It's like 35 to 40 people.
And then
So
the community
parents,
meeting.
And then there's
coaches,
a community meeting in the evening, yeah.
community members.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't go to that one, but I'll be at the one during the day. I think Eric vice versa.
I will be there at night, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of construction stuff.
All right, that's the core committee report. So the last thing we have under construction is the approval for the 2 change orders. Do I have a motion on that?
So moved.
I'll second it. Is there any discussion, questions about that? Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Item 9, if I get my X's and V's right, is board policy and procedure. Policy committee report, please.
We didn't meet. We have
Pretty
some.
short report.
Yeah. I mean, the items we have for final read here, if anybody has any questions on those, I'm happy to take them, but I think you all have had a chance to read them, so.
Yep.
So we go ahead with the motion then.
So moved. I'm gonna try to do all of them. I've moved everything so far.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of board policy final reading, to be B1, A through O. Any further discussion, questions? Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
On to curriculum and instruction, the teaching and learning committee report.
We again did not meet. We meet quarterly, so no meeting this time. But great presentation. Yeah, on the math programming.
Makes you look good.
Mm-hmm.
We do have 2 recommendations for approval for student parent handbook and the roster of candidates for graduation, which is very exciting. I saw that whole list. Do I have a motion?
Come on, Emily. So moved. Second.
I'll just mention that I think from the student parent handbook that it really was very procedural, updates of personnel, new change in high school principal name, for instance. Board president changed. apparently, yeah. So there are a couple of notations, but I don't think there's anything substantive that was changed in there. And Andy, is there anything about the roster of candidates for graduation that you want to note?
No, just exciting.
You recommend them all?
I do, and was it May 29th at 11?
What time is it? It's at 11?
And it's going to be in the stadium, outdoors, weather
Great.
permitting.
Good, good.
Right, Rob? No pressure.
Beth, would you call the roll?
Yeah, Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gusset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Business and finance. Beth, the treasurer's presentation.
Okay. So, a couple things I want to touch on, some financial highlights, and then I'm going to just give a quick overview of the 5-year forecast, which is on the agenda for approval. So starting off, as of the end of April, we had gotten our final tax settlement, our final Grandview Yard settlement. We're right on budget where we expect to be. Our taxes were a little over. Our property tax allocation was a little under. So those are, those two together really make up that total. So interest for the month, $9,433 in our general fund. Our expenditure budget to date is about 83%, and our actual expenditures are about 81%. So we're just a hair under our budget, which is where we like to be. And our investments in our general fund, the weighted average yield of investments outstanding right now is about 1.25%. So we are seeing those interest rates creep back up a little bit. So permanent improvement fund, there's not much of a change here from last month, about $1.4 million fund balance, and our unencumbered balance is about $929,000. So these projects have been kind of ongoing, a couple little minor restoration projects there at the bottom, the gym entrance and the iron on the front of the high school are kind of in progress as well. Construction fund, our interest for April was a little over $31,000. We are at about $1,750,000 in interest earnings for the project to date, and that is net of the fees, and we do expect to be just a little bit over $1.8 million in total interest earnings. So those are pretty predictable. We've got our investments locked in at certain interest rates, so we know how much more money we're going to get. So we will be a little bit over the 1.8, which is what we have expected all along. You can see our soft costs, our construction costs. Our fund balance is about $16.7 million now, and the remaining investments that we have, that construction money tied up in, have a yield of about 1.67. So just the only update here, the interest for the month. We touched on in the core team, the change order 36 incorporates a lot of these funding items that are shown on this. So the donation, the city money, the donation from the foundation. Those will be encumbered so that funding will be incorporated into the project as well.
Can I ask something real quick,
Yeah,
just so
sure.
I don't forget? It was a really minor amount, so, but the iron piece, that's coming out of PI? I didn't realize that. I mean, not that it really matters, but
Yeah.
that's
so
the refinishing of the
just
front.
those iron
Yeah.
kind of things on the front windows
Mhm.
on the upper level of the front of the high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't realize we were using the.
That
PI money
was
for
my
it.
fault.
No, it's no big deal. Like I said, it's less than $10,000, but.
And I know they're working closely. Jim has is kind of taking the lead on that, and is really there's some coordination work that is being done with the construction team on site to do that. So there is a lot of close collaboration between the two on that. So then just a quick overview of our 5-year forecast. As you guys know, May is the one of the 2 months of the year that we do a 5-year forecast update. This is all just kind of a refresher here that it is a requirement of the Department of Education, but really more importantly, it's a financial tool for us to really monitor our cash flow, our financial results, and levy cycles and all those things. So it's something that is very important in that regard. It is general fund only. you know, 3 years of historical data, 5 years forecasted. And we do know that the actual results are going to differ. It's the best information we have at the time, and it's kind of a snapshot in time. So the Finance Committee, as I mentioned, did review that on April 18th at our last Finance Committee meeting. And, you know, I included here, you know, in general, there are uncertainties in the forecast. And so again, we make assumptions. I'm not going to talk too much about that. These are the same things that we include in our forecast each time as kind of uncertainties. So really, what I like to highlight is what has changed since we talked about the last forecast and the last board-approved adoption of that. And really, as I explained in the Finance Committee meeting, there's only 2 things that I changed on this forecast from the start of the year. The first is the Grandview Yard revenue projections, and that is something every May we have new projections in the spring. We hire Baker Tilly to update those, and the Finance Committee reviewed those in February. So this forecast incorporates those new projections, and then an update to our health insurance renewal. So again, this is a time of the year that we get that set in place for next year, and we know that that renewal is going to be significantly lower than what we had initially projected, which is great news. So, you know, hats off to the insurance committee. That is, a couple teachers, a couple classified employees, and a couple administrators. And so that group, you know, really has done a lot of work this year to look at where we were at and make some recommendations for some adjustments to our plan so that we are really able to sustain that, you know, financially long term. So we are changing carriers effective July 1, and we're in the middle of that open enrollment period right now. We're asking everybody to complete new forms. And this week we have set aside 2 days where Christina, our HR coordinator, and Jenny, our assistant treasurer, along with a rep from Gallagher, our insurance broker, have been available after school 2 days this week. Actually, today was one of them, and Monday, where any employees that had questions could come in, sit down, get help with their forms, answer any insurance questions. So anyway, the insurance
and
is
employees can do all that. Like, they can get all those forms filled out before they leave for the summer,
Yes.
and then it goes into effect July.
Absolutely. Yep.
Cool.
Exactly. So we want, you know, staff to be able to leave for the summer and have
Good.
everything taken care of and have no worries and from that standpoint. So that health insurance is really a celebration. That was, like I said, some hard work and collaboration with all those groups, and got that renewal down to a 2.6%. And you know, 6 months ago, we were expecting a significant double-digit increase. So again, thanks to the insurance company for their work on that. So really, those are the only 2 things that changed. I do want to point out, though, in between the time that the Finance Committee met and reviewed this and tonight when it's being adopted, you know, we have been negotiating with the teachers union. I think that, so initially that recommendation was going to be tonight, and I think we have to move that off because, you know, Katie wasn't available tonight. And so I say that just to explain that as soon as that is adopted, assuming it is, that forecast will change a little bit again. So I have run those preliminary numbers already. I will share that with the Finance Committee meeting, or the Finance Committee at the meeting next Monday. And we're still in a very, very good place with that. So anyway, highlights, we've got about a $5.8 million unreserved balance in year 5, which is a really remarkable position for us to be in. You know, and then a couple highlights, I included local revenue. You know, this is no surprise, very consistent. About 88% of our operating budget is from local taxpayers. Salaries and benefits, of course, are you know, close to 80% of our budget, and you know, that is no different than, you know, all of the last forecasts that we've adopted. So just some kind of highlights there, and just included kind of a breakdown of our revenue, as well as our expenditure categories. So the one thing you'll see in this expenditure category, that kind of salmon color, is it represents how much of our operating budget we set aside to help pay the debt, the bond payments. So that Grandview Yard money that we promised to, you know, commit to reducing that millage from taxpayers. So So anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell. Not a whole lot changed in that. It did change for the better from the last forecast, so I think that's great news. And again, Monday, the Finance Committee will be touching on how that tentative agreement with the teachers union will impact the forecast.
What are your assumptions for insurance past the known 2.6?
Great question, Emily. So past next year, 22-23 is 2.6. I include 10% each of the next years after.
Yeah, it looks like, if you look across the budget, it's goes up
I
significantly.
assume, because that's what I think you had in before
I
for the
did.
year, which made sense because like you said,
Sure.
it wasn't long ago that we were worried that 10% wasn't enough.
Right,
And then
right.
it flip-flopped.
Yeah, and so we have, the insurance committee also has met with staff in all three buildings and shared some of the, cost cutting. We've got several options within our insurance plans that employees can take advantage of. Shopping if you're planning for an X-ray or an MRI, just helping educate employees so that they know you can get the same MRI at ProScan for a third of the cost that you can get it at Riverside, for example. I'm just making those numbers up, but it's true. And so we have really made an effort to go out and share that information, kind of educate our employees on where they can find those resources and those comparison tools and some other cost cutting measures. So yes, really, really happy with how that insurance played out. We're expecting much, much worse.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Beth.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We'll segue from that into the Finance Committee report.
You want to go for it?
Sure. We met a month ago from next Monday.
Yeah, I think unfortunately our schedule is just off from the meetings right
It
now. It
is.
won't be that way all the time.
And we discussed a fair amount of what Beth just presented with the 5-year forecast, and we talked a very fair amount about the change in insurance. 'Cause I think at one point we were braced for like 15% change, and the fact, because I believe Beth hadn't had the information that long where it came in with this is what it is, so that was big news. We talked about projections with the tentative agreement between GHEA, how that can affect things. Big news, Kids Club is, with the increase in everything, is starting to come around so that they're not in the red, they're in the black. This was, I think, our first month in the last 18.
It was definitely a better month. The last
yeah.
two have just barely been.
They've just barely, and this
yeah.
one was the one where it was first. Kids Club is starting to, what's the word I'm looking for? Be more in the black. And we discussed a little bit about the potential agreement with AEP and Marble Cliff, and
Yeah, I think that about covers it.
that's what we did in finance. We missed you.
I'm there in spirit.
You are.
So for approvals with the finance, we actually have 11C 1 through 9. Could I have a motion to put that on the table?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there anything to discuss here? Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gusset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wesson?
Aye.
Now, under Personnel, item 12, for everything but A1 3A, which would be A1 through, how many pages?
1 through 2.
There's a lot. 21.
Ew.
So quite a few actions here. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
I will second. Is there discussion that we have here? Maybe just one thing to point out is that I know, I believe it was, well, the last two meetings, actually, we've discussed the food and cafeteria situation, and had a recommendation last time from Kyle on increased hours, and it looks like there's some that's contained here that is in reaction to that. And maybe, I know Kyle's not here, but Beth, I think you were involved in the financial part of that, and if you wanted to say anything about approval for that items.
Yeah, Jim, do you want to say a few, you met with Kyle more directly.
We had a meeting, discussed staffing, realized a need for increased staffing, but also wanted to wait on any other further staffing changes until next year when the kitchens merge, so that we could get operationally a better feel for the staffing and how that works. So we're addressing an immediate need, but rather than approve additional at this time, we wanted to wait and see what the functionality is and whether or not we wouldn't need additional staff when the two kitchens merge.
Okay. So the ones that we have on the agenda today would allow for some additional time for
Yes.
preparation, which
Yes.
allows, I think what Kyle was saying was the
More preparation of fresh fruits, vegetables.
Right.
So 2 4.5-hour employees are moving to 5.5-hour employees. So that'll make a difference for certain.
We will keep this even when the other one opens. This isn't separate.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thanks. I just note here also, since the last board meeting, the resignation of Chris Herman, band director, who I know my kids went through many years of band, and he was much appreciated. So it's sad to see him go. Appreciate his service. I know it's a good opportunity for him, but still hard for us. Is there any other item? Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt? Aye. Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Next is a recommendation for approval of volunteers. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Beth, call the roll.
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
And the last thing that we have is other, which includes a couple meeting date. And Andy, do you want to?
Yeah, so I think a couple things. One, our June board meeting has been changed. Originally, it was scheduled as a regular meeting, I think, in or around June 30th, but it's moved to the 15th. However, I know Haley is sending out, or has, a doodle to schedule still a financial component for the June meeting at the end of the month, yet to be determined, that won't be able to take place on June 15th. Additionally, I think we're finalizing a need to have, as a result of Katie not being able to be here today and the importance of the big decision of voting on the tentative agreement with GHEA, it was our prevailing view, while we had planned to go into executive session to review the tentative agreement. Given that she wasn't able to be here, we're going to reschedule that as a special meeting, singular agenda item, go into executive session, discuss the tentative agreement, come out and vote. I gave Haley, I think, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week, in or around 3:15 or 3:30 as possible dates. I doubt she sent that yet, but will be tomorrow based on people's availability. It'll be one of those days next week or the following. I think also.
Just FYI, I'm out of town on Thursday and Friday.
Okay,
so it would not.
Looks
be
like
this.
Wednesday might be
Wednesday
the
it is.
prevailing view. So maybe you don't have to send a doodle. Wednesday at 3:15.
Could we do 3:30?
Yes, 3:30 would be better.
Teachers,
Yeah,
maybe?
Wednesday at 3:30.
Sure.
Mr. Bodie?
Let's do it.
I think Katie would be the only one who.
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah.
might
So
be
let's check with
difficult
Katie
for.
and then send out the announcement and make that happen. I will say, just probably as you would expect, I did follow up with Joe Hecker and let him know, Joe Hecker being the GHEA president, that we weren't going to vote tonight, But the only reason we weren't going to vote is because Katie had an emergency with one of her children and correspondingly felt it important that she be here because it is a big decision, and he was totally understanding.
And that was relayed to GHEA, that it was,
I assume Joe would probably let at least the executive committee know. I don't know about that.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that explanation, Andy. I think we need to vote on that. Has that been moved? Remind me, no. Moved in second?
I'll move it. I'm so moved.
Emily, you got them all.
Emily is like on fire today.
I know.
Did we have a second?
I'll second.
Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
And as stated, I don't think we have an executive session today. So that brings us to the end of the meeting unless
I
there
got
are
30
other-
seconds, and I'll keep it quick.
Sorry.
At our last meeting, we talked about House Bill 616 and some of the other pieces of legislation. As a follow-up, they have not gone into committee yet. What I've proposed to do is I would like to draft a letter, and if the bills go to a committee, I'll present that to the board, and we can vote or decide whether or not we choose to, as a board, take a stance and write resolution, letter, whatever. But for right now, not, because it's not anywhere. I will draft the letter, send it to you all, have it publicly read, and then we can decide.
Thank you for taking the lead on that.
Thank you. Oh, hopefully
I'm
it stays
very
out.
happy.
I hope it stays out of committee. That's
Happy
good
not
news
to
so far.
write it, but happy to write it. Either way. That's all I got.
All right, and we are adjourned.
Wait, did we have to vote? Did we have to vote to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, we have to vote to adjourn. Eric.
Got one
You
more
can't just
move.
declare that? All right.
Did you make the motion?
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
No, I want a second. Sorry.
Beat you to it. Beth?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset? And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.